Hi everyone, welcome back to our next episode of Nobody Talks Anymore. This week we're joined by We Are Hummingbird. Do you want to introduce yourself, guys?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ian. Nice to meet you all. I'm Ian from We Are Hummingbird.
And I am Carl from We Are Hummingbird. We should say we're both co-founders of We Are Hummingbird.
Yeah, both co-founders there.
So what is it you guys do?
I'll let you tell them, Carl.
So we are a non-profit who use music as a platform to engage with people and encourage them to talk about any issues they may be experiencing in quite a very safe environment. Anyone can talk about anything they want without the fear of being judged by somebody else. We're like a really tight-knit community, very friendly. And yeah, it's very, very open, non-judgmental.
So what was it that made you start the company?
So we have there's a big group of friends. We're originally from Chorley. That's where it was set up. And yeah, like I say, we have a very large group of friends who have known each other for some are going back like 30 plus years. Obviously, there's a massive passion of music within that group. Completely out of the blue, one day, one person of that group took their life, and it was a huge shock to everyone. No one knew it was coming. And he was a musician. He was in a band called Failsafe, who were pretty well known, and he was also a solo musician, singer-songwriter. And we wanted to do something out of like the grieving process. We didn't want somebody else to have to go through what we were all going through at that time. So it started from there, really.
Is that what made you want to do it within like the music side as opposed to just mental health in general?
Yeah, well, like I said, music was like a big connection between all of us. And as we know now, there's like music connects everybody in so many different ways. I'm still yet to find a person, I don't think I ever will do, that turns around to me and says, "Nah, don't like music."
Okay.
So yeah, I think there's so many different levels for it. Whether it's a completely different kinds of music, it always connects people.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's varying degrees of being a fan of music, and there's people like me and yourselves who are passionate about music, go to gigs all the time, but then there's people who just sort of listen to it in their spare time, but there's still always that connection of music, isn't there?
Exactly, yeah.
You think about how many different diverse groups of people that there are. And I think one of the things we've found over the years of doing this is that there's millions of people that don't relate to the way that mental health is currently explained, because it's not their way of learning. So, and I'm not using broad, generalization here, but someone who enjoys Metallica might not feel they have a great connection to another mental health organization that exists because it doesn't talk the same language as them. Someone that enjoys going around the world to dance festivals or big global clubs won't relate to the way that some organizations currently talk. So it's about saying, well, if we know that music brings everyone together, why are we not talking in a language that does the same as well? Why are we so rigid on how we communicate? It's like one size fits all. And that was one of the big things that we found by using music. It allows us to adapt to every different person's kind of taste, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really good. So it's obviously not just like one specific genre of music you focus into. There's a bit of everything. Do you find it's like helpful to spread across everything like that, or how does it work?
Yeah, it is, right? I mean,
Yeah.
We laugh because I seem to have taken the hat of electronic music, and Carl would have you believe that's the only music I listen to, which it's not. But we're here. I guess, and I don't think I think you agree with this, Carl. One of the biggest surprises we've had is how welcoming the dance music community is to us. Like,
that was a huge shock to me. Kind of that seems to be the one genre that has been a lot more prevalent. Yeah,
absolutely. They do. the welcoming, and I'm not saying that other drummers haven't, but I think it took us all by surprise that when we started talking to people who go to clubbing destinations for their holidays or go away, they've really got what we're about. And I guess that's one of the key drivers as to why we exist, because there's millions of people that flock overseas every year from all different parts of the world to have their escapism, but yet they've never had a voice when it comes to mental health, because no one has understood the lifestyle they lead or what drives them as individuals. So I think that's been a real shock, hasn't it? But
yeah,
you know, rock and roll bands as well, they're just as welcoming, and you know, it's been really important to, and we've had, you know, we talked to some people that are part of choirs, and it's as broad as you want to find it.
Yeah.
Have you found that like a lot are just really welcoming? Obviously, there's the people who come to you for help, but some people who don't need your help, who will welcome you in, sort of introducing you to the scene and things like that.
Yeah. I think it's been a lot tougher over the last year or so, obviously, because there hasn't really been a scene, has there? I know what was it? The year before last, Ian?
Yeah.
You were over in Ibiza quite a lot doing the retreats.
Yeah.
So, and then
festivals, aren't we, as well?
Yeah, well, we did Victoria's Festival the same year.
Yeah.
And then last year we should have been at Boardmasters and Cambridge Folk Festival. Obviously, they got cancelled. And then we're just hoping that obviously it kind of kicks off again this year.
So what is it you do while at the festival? Do you have like a tent set up, or how does it work for you guys?
Yeah, go on, Ian. I'll let you take
this one. Yes, we've got you know, because people kindly raise funds for us, and I think you know, and we'll touch on that in a bit, I'm sure. But people raise money for us, and what we were able to do with some of the first lots of money that we got in was by a big gazebo, and it's all sign written, and essentially it allows us to go to festivals and be a point of contact for people if they just need 5 minutes out, if they want to learn more, if they just want to take a safe space. So you'll have welfare teams roam around festivals that are kind of crisis. They look after people that maybe have overindulged or might be experiencing some form of poor mental health due to the surroundings or the amount of people or the noise. So you'll have a crisis team on hand. But often alongside crisis teams, you'll have other areas where people can get more information about mental health, what it is, what's going on. Just take 5 minutes out. So we've got a really nice sign-written gazebo, 2 big deck chairs, and we take guitars, and we just literally have a safe space. And we've had great feedback from people saying it's actually really, really helped them. And then last year, what was, you know, and again, as Carl said, a real shame, with a lot of the festivals we're at, or were due to be at last year and are due to be at in 2021, we'll actually have a gazebo backstage as well for the artists. So before they go on, because that's a lot of what we do as well. We try and work with artists, whether that be up and coming artists or established, you know, signed to record deal artists, about how to support them with their mental health and how they can manage better their anxiety, or, you know, why they're feeling certain ways, or anything that goes with it. But again, often it's about being able to talk to them in their language in a safe environment.
Yeah, again, it's not just limited to the artists either, is it? It's any of the touring crew, so the sound guys, the guitar techs, and anyone, because they're all part of the same team. They all kind of suffer at the same time. Being on tour with the same people for months on end kind of takes its toll on things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What's really cool as well is we've got some really decent followers, and not just, so sorry, let me reread this. We've got some amazing support from some established musicians, and part of the plan is they'll actually come with us to festivals. So you might be stood in the middle of a field feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and before you know it, you're talking to a recording artist who's helping you understand your mental health, because we've been able to build this network of, you know, world-class drummers, world-class DJs, guitarists. We've got loads of great people that work with us and come on these festivals, and that just again cements to people like, well, I'm stood here talking to Brandon Block or some other person who's been there, done it, and experienced this. And that really helps cement people to be like, okay, we're all the same. We're all in this together.
Yeah, I think it's something that I've thought about. Like, is you look at sort of musicians and actors get it a lot as well, and footballers, where you look at them from an outside and think, you've got this perfect world, you've got job. How you shouldn't be upset. And I think it's really important that there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. You're probably not going to get many musicians who are stood on stage playing to 100,000 people and going, oh, I'm hating this. They're loving that moment. But once they're off the stage, it's a different world, isn't it? It's completely so many other.
I think the internet's probably changed. Well, social media definitely, because as soon as someone shows that they have this weak spot or a vulnerability, then it's a case of like the internet trolls then just pile on. It gives them freedom of speech just to attack this person, and it's probably it's due to fear of that no one wants to speak up about it.
We do a lot of stuff with with what I do in a day job side as well with artists, and there is this is the fears there, but also the fear of, if I put my head up, then it's coming, and what have I got to feel? What have I got? There's always people worse off. Like you said, footballers, actors, musicians. But the problem is there's a huge world there that the general public don't really see. So if you think about, do we as the general public ever give a real understanding to the pressure that someone faces if they've had a #1 song? Because they're then expected to have another one and another one and another one. It's like going into work every day, whatever you do, whatever occupation you live in, it's like going in and your boss expecting you to smash world records, to be the best in the world every single day. And you're like, well, I can't do it every day. But we layer this pressure on. And then if you think of, like, for example, DJs, to use them to give people a concept. So a DJ is usually started off as a kid that wants to make music, probably sat in his room, or any musician. They want to make music. They love music. They love the creativity. They love the freedom. And then they might get a contract or a deal, and everything's great, and they love this, and this is brilliant, and they get caught up on the excitement. And then they might get exposed to drugs or alcohol. Okay, we know this happens, fine. But then what will start happening is, as they get bigger, they'll start getting booked by promoters. Excellent. Well, what we don't often see is that when a promoter books an act, he isn't just booking him to play that gig, they're booking him for the whole duration. So if someone flies them out to America, the promoter will look at it that they have this act to do the set, to party with them after, to drink with them after, to socialize, and then they'll bung them on a plane. And that all sounds great fun, but you've got to remember, at the heart of this is just a kid that wants to make music. And maybe they don't want to party, and maybe they don't want to drink. And maybe, as fun as it is to do it for a little bit, they don't want to have to do it every single day. And then, of course, they're placed with the problem of, but if I say something, this promoter's not going to book me again. And I need the money because I need to pay my mortgage. So they end up getting caught in this thing. Now, people can look at this in any way, shape or form and say, well, yeah, they live the great lifestyle. Not every single artist wants to live that lifestyle, but it's so difficult because that's what pays their bills. And the fear of saying, sorry, I don't drink, or sorry, I don't do that, or I'm just going to play my set and I'm going to go. You get known as being boring. You get known as not being part of it. And all of this stuff is never seen by the general public. And that is one of the things that gets missed. And this isn't just for DJs. This is any artist. But I use a DJ as an example. It's criminal.
Yeah, and I think it's also like musicians aren't just playing once a month on a Saturday night. There's the Monday, the Tuesday. It's a full-time job. And I was watching something. It was actually a documentary on the Rolling Stones. So they're obviously quite big and got the full setup. But they're like, it's not so much just that 2 hours they're on stage. That day they had to go and meet people and they had to organise this. And you think, oh, Rolling Stones, everything's done for them. But actually, they're there and whatever age they are, and he's still out talking, laughing with fans and interacting. And I'm sure there's days where he doesn't want to do that. And other musicians, they want to meet the fans, but there's days where you're just like, oh, I don't feel like it. But you've still got to go and do it, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Like you say, that's what you're being paid for.
I suppose every day you're draining your adrenaline. You do the gig, you get your adrenaline up, and then your gig's over, and then kind of it drops back down again.
Sit
But
in
then
a
the day
hotel room
after,
on your own.
yeah, and then the day after, you got to do it all again. You got to muster up all this energy. It's been physically draining from the day before and the day before that for weeks in advance. And you've got to carry on performing exactly the same as you would, because you know people are paying hard-earned money to come and watch you perform as good as you can.
Do you know, like from a depression point of view, it is one of the biggest acts. You know, people when they live with depression, and there will be artists that live with depression. You know, the first thing we've got to understand is a mental illness doesn't care how rich you are. It really doesn't care. So we need to get over ourselves when we say, well, they live a great life. I lived a great life. I was still had depression. My life wasn't standing on stage. There's loads and loads of people that, you know, will live a great life but still have depression. So you got to forget, first of all, whether someone's worthy or not to have a mental illness. That's not even a question. But the amount of effort that has to be put into pretending you're okay is excruciatingly hard. And you think exactly what you said there. You've got an artist that has to do media, press, adverts, fashion stuff, then go and perform, then do after show parties, get up the next day. It is just a ticking time bomb. And then we all act really surprised when artists cancel gigs, or when, like Jesse from Little Mix, has to take time out. Now, I knew straight away that's mental illness.
Yeah.
I would have go for a month or something before they said anything, and you know straight away that she's experienced poor mental health and she just can't do it anymore. But no one said that. No one said on day one, listen, Jesse's needs some time out because of her mental state of mind. Because again, it takes a whole month to get to the point where we feel we can share that knowledge. Everything needs to change. Every single thing needs to be made different in the music industry.
Yeah, it needs to start from like the top up, doesn't it? Like the management and the record labels needs to be a lot more proactive in pushing mental health. At the moment, we don't see this happening at all.
They think it costs too much. They think it's too expensive, and the amount of tour managers I've sat with and said, when are you going to do mental health as standard? And they're like, well, it's too expensive. I'm like, you've got a tour bus. That's expensive, isn't it? Well, we need that. Well, you need mental health support. It doesn't matter how expensive it is, you still need it. It can't be cut around.
Yeah, I think part of that might be because they don't see the monetary value from that. They're putting X amount into the stage production, but there people are coming paying that. Nobody's coming paying for your mental health.
No.
But they feel it when someone leaves.
Exactly.
That's when it hits them.
And it's got to be looked at like an insurance in a way. And I've been saying this for a while, because you've got to put it in at the front end to reduce the back end. And it's the same with insurance. You never see the value of an insurance until you need to use it. And this is exactly the same. But we have, you know, you can look at a shiny tour bus and go, oh, I can equate value to that. That looks nice. That's shiny. That's comfortable. They're going to get a good night's sleep. Forget the fact that they can't actually get to sleep because they're riddled with anxiety, but they've got a nice, tiny, shiny tour bus. So happy days. Lovely.
What can people like myself and James and other sort of promoters on sort of a more grassroots level do to help?
Oh?
Well, I think probably the main thing is just support. And I think even though we've been going 5 years, it's only in the last couple of years that things have really started to pick up, and we're seeing like a wider range of people that we're actually getting to communicate with.
Yeah.
So I think definitely for us, it's support and just passing on like the word of mouth and directing people back to our website, where we have loads of free bespoke created information that people can download. So we have a booklet that kind of it doesn't teach you, it helps you maintain your mental well-being, that you can just fill in. You can download as many times as you want and fill in as many times as you want. And then we have like a comprehensive list of podcasts, books, things like that. And for us, it's all about giving out the free information that's just readily available and easy to understand by people. With everything that we do is 100% non-clinical, because we kind of find that once it starts going down that path, people get quite bored and don't want to read it, whereas we speak to people on the same level. So yeah, it's,
I think that was one of the biggest things, wasn't it? Because we realised, like, we were like, how would we want to be spoke to? Because we've been through it, and we're like, if we didn't understand it, then why should everyone be spoke to in the same way? And that's the thing. If you don't get something, you tend to shy away from it. You're like, well, I'll leave that for another day. Whereas if something's put across in a way you understand, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I get that.
And I think you sort of touched on it a bit before speaking about like festivals, and it's sort of like the varying degrees of it. There's people who suffering really strongly, and then there's people like, say, you just need 5 minutes out, and obviously like you must have sort of different material for sort of the different sort of depth of issues.
Yeah, totally. I mean, but this is the thing. Every festival will have a crisis team. So in mental health terms, crisis, it means something's happening here and now, whether that be a panic attack, whether that be a psychotic episode, whether that be an overdose on drug or alcohol. There'll be crisis teams that are there to deal with those kind of things. And in situations, if it was at that point, we would work with the crisis team to make sure that the person was receiving the appropriate professional support in that level. But as you said, there's other people that, and we see it all the time. There's people we still talk to now from years ago that just came and sat with us for like 15 minutes over a period of a couple of days. Would just come and join us for 15 minutes and sit down and be like, yeah, I've just been in the, I've been in the mix. I just want to sit and relax. I want to take 5 minutes. No worries. And be like, yeah, well, it's just that chance to engage. And then they're like, right, I'll see you in a couple of hours. And off they go. And then they'll come back, and there's no pressure. There's no need to do anything. One of the biggest problems that we have is that people don't understand what mental health is. People don't have a clue, and it might not be the time to go into it now, but this is one of the biggest barriers we've got. Is people don't understand what mental health is and what it means. Therefore, they don't understand how to pay attention to it. They always think it's a mental illness, and that's not. That's very, very different to mental health. So, that's one of the first lessons that educate everyone in, is what actually the difference between the two is.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, that there is sort of like the difference in it. And like, I think it is really important to sort of emphasize that you can still be struggling, even if it is just sort of small. And I think you've still got to, like, you might not need to speak to somebody, like say, might need 5 minutes out, but you still got to sort of recognize that you are struggling a bit, and somebody next to you might be worse than you, but you can't just go, oh, well, they're worse, deal with them. If you've got issues as well, you need to sort of do something about it. And if you're sort of struggling, I think you still need to take some time out or speak to somebody if you've got somebody to speak to.
Do you know, just on that, so we all experience mental health every minute of every day. Okay, that's what mental health is. It's everything. It's I can't put it in any simpler terms. People that say they haven't got mental health problems, I mean, that sentence means no, that makes no sense. Because mental health is from the minute we were born to the minute we die. We experience mental health every single millisecond of every single day. It is literally everything about us. When we laugh, when we smile, when we sing, when we dance, when we cry, when we drink a nice cup of coffee, when we feel the sun on our face, when we hear good music, the list goes on. That's what mental health is. And what happens is there's millions of different factors in life that will have an effect on your mental health, okay? Risk factors and protective factors. Risk factors would be things like stress, overeating, overdrinking, smoking, drugs, trauma, abuse, neglect, poverty, unemployment, poor housing, okay? Otherwise known as life. We've all become so accustomed to all of these things that we've just accepted them as life. But that's not what it should be. But because people don't recognize that all of these things that we've accepted to be life are actually chipping away at our mental health, until we start understanding that, that's why so many people are moving along this spectrum, positive mental health to poor mental health to diagnose mental illness, because we've just become accustomed to it all, and we shouldn't be. So yeah, loads of things we can do.
Is there anything sort of like sort of preempting or sort of preventative? I know, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Cal, but when we were speaking about doing this, you were saying, can I have like a couple of the questions first to sort of prepare yourself, because you sort of like you're not very strong at speaking out front. So is there things like that and other things that you can do to sort of help before knowing that you're going into a situation?
I think it depends on the person. With me, like I said to you, I'm awful at public speaking. It's one of my huge anxiety points. One of the reasons I'm doing this today is kind of taking myself out of my comfort zone. And I think for me, knowing what the questions kind of are beforehand helps me not formulate the answers as such, but kind of know what to expect and know roughly what I would be talking about. But yeah, I think, like I say, it depends on the person and how you can figure out your own coping methods.
Yeah. Knowledge is power, right? Doesn't matter how you look at it. Knowledge of what questions are coming or knowledge about what's going on inside your own mind is power. And if you can start to learn, like you mentioned then about triggers. So everyone has triggers. So again, when I train people, I talk about, so if you were going to get a cold, if you're anything like me, you'll get the sniffles and you'll be like, I'm getting a cold. Right, straight down the shot, cold and flu, wrap myself up, cups of Lemsip. I'm going to beat this cold before it gets the better of me, right? Carl's laughing. That's what us Southerners do, right? And I'm done. I'm not. But we all know when something physical is coming on. But also our bodies give us signs for mental things as well. So what I always do when I train people is so we all have a stress signature. We all do something unique when we're stressed. Every single one of us. It's as unique as our signature, hence why it's called a stress signature. And if people take the time to actually work it out, they will always be able to see the thing that they do every single time they're stressed. The same thing around that is we all have anxiety symptoms. So there's something that every single one of us will do, unique to us, when we feel anxious. There'll be a physical thing, an emotional thing, and maybe a behavioral thing, or there might be multiples of each of those. And I'll guarantee you, every time you feel anxious, you'll do it. It could be that you get hot and clammy. It could be that you come out in sores. It could be that you go to the toilet a lot. It could be that you don't sleep at night. It could be that you need to keep checking things. There's loads. And again, I always say to people, you need to learn what your trigger is. Because when you can learn what your triggers are, it's the same as when you start to feel yourself getting a cold. Hang on, I'm starting to recognize these symptoms now. Right, what do I need to do to be proactive? What do I need to do to move forward with this? And it just comes down to knowledge. We've never taught people how to understand their mental health or what's going on inside of their minds. We're set to fail before we even start. It's no wonder we got such a high bill.
It's really interesting part. I never knew that you would have, like, I guess it makes sense that there's the sort of same feelings coming on, and because you're so accustomed to what a cold feels like, you know what a cold is. So if you was to get accustomed to what your specific thing is, I never thought of it that way. Maybe that's something to sort of, for me and other people watching, to think of.
Yeah.
If I went in the position that I was now, and say I was lucky enough a few years ago to go through CBT, and I found that incredibly beneficial for me. I know some people it doesn't work for, but I was one of the lucky ones who took a lot from it. But if I hadn't have had that and I hadn't known Ian and what he just said, I wouldn't know to look for these like symptoms that, or the triggers. So I think the more people we can say that to, then yeah, it would make a big difference.
And this comes back to that exactly, isn't it, Carl? This comes back to the fact that what we do isn't different to any other mental health organization. No. We're not powerful enough to change the statistics. We're not powerful enough to invent some amazing new thing that will change anything. But what we do is we talk in a language that is relatable to other people, the people that haven't been able to pick it up from other organizations because they don't quite get it. And that's all we do. We just put it across in a way. It's like, right, there's 4 lads sat on the screen here, you know, it just so happens 4 lads sat here and we're chatting away. We're probably all around the same demographic. We probably never really had any idea about mental health ever because it's not been on our radar. You want to know about a new beer, a new song, a new nightclub? Yeah, we can tell you that, but we can't tell you about mental health because it's not for us to know. Well, it is. It just needs someone else to put it across to you, and that's as simple as it is, really. If people can understand this, they're one step ahead. It's just knowing it, really.
Do you think a lot of it's knowledge, or a lot of it's to do with like the stigma of not wanting to speak to it or not wanting to help? I don't know whether not wanting to help is the right thing, but you know, like not knowing what to say, or
I think it probably stems from stigma, doesn't it? I think it's, the stigma is like the original catalyst that will then have a knock-on effect to anything else coming after that. So I think once you get rid of the stigma, it then allows people, or gives people the courage, I suppose, to open up and talk about things. And then when you start talking about them, you start learning.
Yeah.
And you start talking to more people, and you learn more things. And then,
it's about like, we're petrified we're going to say something wrong.
Yeah,
we're literally so petrified, and this is one of the reasons, because like, let's say I have a prescription of antidepressants, and in my house I say to my wife, "Oh, I've got to take my happy pills now." Absolutely right. I call them my happy pills. There we go. Got to take my happy pills. But as soon as I step out my front door, I don't know whether, James, you call them happy pills. I don't know if Carl calls them happy pills. So right, hang on, I'm already now at a disadvantage, because what I think's okay to say in my house isn't there. And then this can be on any, given thing. What really makes me laugh, and you, all three of you, have said the word suffer, right? So you'll never hear me say, and I think Carl said this before, I detest the word suffer, because it naturally puts someone in a negative position to say that they're always suffering. So I have certain words I don't use, but there we go. Whilst I don't lose any sleep about that word, you three inadvertently could have really offended me because you've used the word suffering. And this is why we don't talk about it, because we're so petrified of saying the wrong thing. There are words and phrases that can be used that are bulletproof, so to speak. So using the word live with, living with, lives with to describe is crystal clear. You can't really cause any offense at that. Same with experience or experiencing. I'm experiencing anxiety. So there are certain phrases, but because people don't know what to say, they don't say anything at all. And then if you take a step back, that's the equivalent of us all running around with our ears and our eyes shut and pretending that it doesn't exist. And then when it always does happen, we're like, oh, that's a bit strange. I never expected that to happen. We think somehow that by not talking about it or not recognizing it, that it doesn't need to be addressed. It's the same with suicide. People are petrified of that word. I mean, people are absolutely petrified. Like, if you mention that word, that someone's about to kill themselves right next to you. And that's not how suicide works. And again, so we all run around going, I'm never going to ask anyone if they're going to kill themselves. I can't do that. But then when someone does, they're like, oh God, I never saw that come in. It's because you never had the conversation. You never asked the question. And this is a really big thing around, we hold all these beliefs that if we say that word to someone, that they're going to go, oh, great idea. Never thought of that. Yeah, thanks for mentioning. No, it doesn't work that way. It never has. It never will do. But we just form all these beliefs and end up saying nothing at all, and then look surprised when it all goes wrong. And that's what's got to change.
Do you think social media's got a lot to do with that, though? With, like, as soon as you say something that you think, like you say, is safe within your realm, and it's opened up to so many people, and it could offend people. It's not that the word you use doesn't offend people, but I think a lot of people get on your back and sort of things like that.
Yeah, Carl, do you want it or not?
No, you take this one.
So it's a tricky one, social media. I try not to get too involved with it, because for a start, we are social media. So all four of us on this page are social media. There isn't a factory sat on top of a hill with a big neon light saying social media. It's not another place. It's us. And it's a funny one because trolls exist and everyone jumps on and everyone's a keyboard warrior and it is really, really tough. One thing I do know is that while social media gets a huge amount of stick, it is also one of the biggest support functions for the youth of today who live with poor mental health or diagnosed mental illness. Because for the first time ever, what we are able to do, should you be in these certain groups, is find like-minded people on a global scale who have something in common with you, all unique in their own way, but they actually form communities and networks of support and encouragement. And 20 years ago, that wouldn't have existed. So you would really feel on your own. So there's two sides to social media. There is the side that is the mainstream, abusive, trolling, shit side. Sorry to swear. And then there is the supportive network where people really feel valued and like they belong. And I know a lot of people would say they wouldn't be the person they are now if it wasn't for the network they have on social media. So it is a tricky one. It really is.
That's kind of where we come in, because as you know, as an organization, we rely heavily on social media, especially Instagram. That's where we can reach the biggest target audience at the moment. And I don't think from our community that we've ever seen anything negative on our posts from people.
No.
I can't say that about other organizations or other companies. But I think I think you attract the people that you want to attract.
It's a tricky one, but then again, there's a lot of people like that are keyboard warriors that can hide behind a keyboard, and what's interesting is, again, males, as a generalization, when we experience poor mental health, we tend to exert. So we tend to push out. So anger, aggression, frustration, bullying. Okay. So when we feel a certain way, we exert. Females generally will bring it in. Okay. So they'll withdraw, they'll become secluded, they'll talk to themselves. Right. So there's two very clear differences between the way in which males and females interact. So it's not uncommon for the office bully, right? The office arse, the person that no one wants to engage with because they're short, they're sharp, they're aggressive, to actually be doing that as their own coping mechanism for how they're feeling around their own mental health. Really common. Really common.
I've seen, especially like this last year, I've seen quite a few people on like Twitter just say like, "Oh, I'm struggling. It must be really hard for them to say that." And and then I've gone in the comments and there's hundreds of people saying, "Oh, I'm here for you," strangers who follow them, or somebody's seen somebody else has liked it and just gone, "I'm here for you." And I think that's a big thing that's come out of all this pandemic and COVID-19 is sort of like the family and people being there for strangers. I think that's something really positive that's come out this year. I don't know whether you felt that in your circles.
Yeah, it's something that I've something I've definitely seen. And I think people, like from our perspective, we've had a lot more people like direct message us asking if we can give them some advice and things like that. What about you, Ian? I know you're still doing your training, like your mental health first aid training.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything like with the people that you're training from? Because I know you deal with them separately, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I train. So I train for it. So alongside the non-profit, We Are Hummingbird as a sister company, which is trains organisations in mental health first aid. So people can come and spend time with me, and I'll qualify them to be able to go away and be mental health first aiders. So that's what I do a lot of the time, and passing that on. I think a couple of things to just, if you start putting this in a logical order, what we're saying then is we're seeing more and more people now saying that they're in your word, struggling, but they're experiencing poor mental health. We'll put it in my terms. And this is normal, because remember what I said, mental health is everything. And this is the thing. So we all will experience poor mental health. There's no way of getting around it. Every single person on this planet will at some point have poor mental health, not a mental illness, right? Two very different things. And what this means is that naturally, when you go into a COVID situation or any kind of situation where there's changes forced upon you, you're going to see that your mental health will deteriorate. So in theory, we should be seeing in the UK alone 67.5 million people all at some point throughout their life saying, I'm experiencing poor mental health right now, because every single person does. And that's one of the first things to understand is you can't no one can live their lives at a heightened sense of perfection every minute of every day, from the minute they were born to the minute they die. So the fact that more people are saying, hey, look, I need to reach out to someone here, that needs to become the norm, because that is normal life. That doesn't mean you're saying, hey, I've got a mental illness, I need to, take this to the next level. No, you're saying that today things aren't great. I said this to Carl over Christmas. I took 2 weeks off. Now, Carl knows how hard that is for me anyway, right? But because I took 2 weeks off, and pre-Christmas, you're like, this is going to be great. I'm going to sit on the sofa. I'm going to watch films. I'm going to do nothing. All these things that we look forward to. But actually, 3 days in, my mental health deteriorated massively, because I couldn't talk to people, because I thrive off of this. Yeah. I couldn't see people because I couldn't go down the pub and see my mates on Boxing Day or Christmas Eve like normal. I couldn't see my mum. I was sitting on the sofa, so I wasn't exercising as much. So all of these little things were starting to actually decrease my mental health. And by the start of January, I was on my knees. Now, I talk to people for a living about how to have positive mental health, yet I still had poor mental health, because it's life, it's normal, it's the ups and downs. And so to go to what you're saying is everyone should be reaching out at some point and saying, well, yeah, right, I'm at this low level now, bit of support and I'll get back up to this one. It's part of life.
Yeah. And then it's just help.
Go on.
No, then I was just going to say, then it's just helping them and directing them on the best route that they can take. That's what we are there for. We can listen to what people are saying and give them the best route to get the best advice.
Do you feel like there could be more done in the educational system, because you don't really hear of it being talked about or taught to kids, and it is important? And do you find that there's not enough of it?
Yeah, not enough, and not enough money. They're starting to do stuff. So there was a post yesterday, lovely. There's just not enough money. And the reason there's not enough money is because we're reactive. We've spent so many decades only reacting to a problem. And what that means is that when you become a reactive organization or a reactive country, that the money runs out. So Boris Johnson, don't get me wrong, this is what people need to manage. We all manage our own budgets in our house, okay? You've got what you've got, and the government are exactly the same. Now, let's be clear. Now, they've just apportioned £79 million to youth mental health, okay? In the grand scheme of things, as lovely as that is, it's nothing. I mean, just to give you an idea, the total cost of ill mental health in the UK, 109 billion, right? So we're quite a bit off. Now, yes, 79 million is a lot of money, and people will look at that and they'll go, great. But what will happen is most of that 79 million will go into telephone lines. Great. So for youths to phone telephone lines, absolutely brilliant. Reactive. Yep. It will go into people being able to come and see them. Great. That's proactive. So by the time it gets all split up, there just isn't as much money. What needs to be done is proactive education, like what we're just doing now, understanding the difference between these simple things at an early age, understanding it. And more schools are doing it. My daughter's 9, and I've seen that she's been doing mental health kind of lessons around simple stuff for them at their age, and that's absolutely brilliant. But the only way this country is ever going to turn a tide on mental health cost is educating from the ground up and accepting that it's going to take about 30 years.
Without wanting it to turn it too sort of political, do you think that that money is just sort of given as a sign that, yeah, we are noticing it, as opposed to, right, we can actually do something about it?
Well, money's always been given to mental health. It's not a new thing that's happened this year. So what you've got this year is probably the first time anyone's ever held up a sign and told you how much is gone. So it isn't new. Obviously, the people want to see that money's going to mental health. So this year, it's thing. If next year there's a pandemic around cows and we need that, someone will probably hold a sign up saying we're giving 79 million to the survival of cows, and that will be the next year's agenda. So money's always given to mental health. It's just not massively different from what's always given to it.
I think you could probably class it as virtue signalling, couldn't you? In a way.
Yeah. But let's not go any more political.
No. Yeah, we try to stay away from politics.
Yes.
We've got no alliance to anyone. All we're saying is that, we know there's a tight amount of money. We know there is. There's always going to be a tight amount of money. So we've got to change the way in which we're dealing with this. We've got to change the way. Instead of throwing money at it, we've got to get it from the start, underneath. And that's what's got to change. That's what's got to be done.
And we have seen from when we were at Victoria's Festival, we have seen that quite a number of teachers and head teachers requesting like mental health first aid training.
Definitely.
So it's something that is clearly obvious to them being in their positions.
Yeah, I've trained quite a few schools, colleges, organisations around education. Absolutely, they're desperate to know more, to understand more. And we should also understand that not everyone that we expect to have mental health training does. So I've trained a lot of the people at the NHS. You walk in there thinking these guys are going to know it all, and they don't, because by default, if you're a accident and emergency doctor, then you don't specialize in mental health. So why would you know anything about it? And that's kind of, but again, as society, we get suckered into the belief that a person in a uniform knows this stuff, that a policeman knows about mental health or suicide prevention, because we'd call them if we needed someone. But let's not forget, these guys turn up with no knowledge either. They're not trained in any of these things. So the sooner we can start widespread training people on facts and real knowledge rather than hearsay, that's when you start seeing that number of mental health cost go down.
So what is it you guys do, and how can people sort of, I guess hire is the wrong word, but people get you to sort of train them?
Well, yeah, as I said, so that's the kind of so it must be, to be clear, the We Are Hummingbird is a non-profit organisation. So we'll come to that in a minute, explain the non-profit side. But myself, as we said, We Are Hummingbird has a sister company, which is We Are Hummingbird Health. And so, yeah, people can go onto the website. It's not part of the charitable offering, but if they were interested, they can contact us through the website. I train organisations, or people can sign up as individuals to individual sessions where they can come and do 2-day courses and come away with a full certification to be essentially what is known as a mental health first aider, but to increase their knowledge. So that's something that people can do from our website. But I mean, I'll let Carl explain our charitable offering. I was saying Carl and charitable at the same time. I'll let Charlie explain our charitable offering.
Yeah, so as the non-profit, we obviously get donations from the public, which is incredibly humbling. Even the pound that comes through, it's amazing. So we set our charitable offering up. I think it was the middle of last year.
Yeah.
Because we were going down a route of whether to be a charity or a non-profit.
Sorry, what's the difference?
There's a lot of red tape involved with being a charity. Essentially, what we found was we set us off on our journey with a goal. We wanted to speak to people who perhaps have tarnished backgrounds or
colourful lived experience.
Yes, yeah, to put it like that. And we found that as a charity, there's a lot of restrictions on us doing that. We would essentially be dictated by a board of trustees, whereas if we're a non-profit, anything that we do, obviously we do our due diligence with everything, but everything that we do sits on Ian, John, and myself. We ultimately make that decision whether it's the right thing to do or not. So, and we're willing to accept any consequences should they arrive, but we also know that we have done that for a reason. So that's why I went down the non-profit route. But we still act as though we are a charity. So we still have all our policies in place. We do our due diligence on everything. And all the money that comes in, we want to then be able to provide musical instruments or equipment to schools. So we're not only introducing music at an early age, but we're also having that connection there with mental health, us going in as an organisation. So yeah, we're looking to open it to application. Well, we were going to open it a lot sooner, but now with everything that's been going on with the schools closing and things, it's kind of stopped us a little bit. But we will be opening the applications up this year, I'd hope.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be September when like the new school year starts. So yeah, that's where people's gracious donations go.
It's huge, isn't it? Like people don't realize, like a drum kit, what, £350 to buy a drum
Yeah,
kit?
like if you look at £1,000, that could buy 10 acoustic Fender guitars, for instance, which might not seem much to many people, but if you're giving that to kids, it's a precious item and something that the schools probably can't afford, because we always know that like when budgets get cut, it's always like the arts and culture and the music.
Yeah.
So if we can,
when I was looking through your website, I was looking at the things, and you have a section. It sort of shows what, if you donate this, we can buy this for school. And I think that's a really good thing, because for me, if I'm thinking, right, I want to donate £20, but I don't know where that's going, but on your site it says, oh, if you donate £30, we can buy a microphone for this school.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not buying the microphone, I know what my money's going to. I'm not just putting £20 and you going, right, well, I'm going to go and do this with it. And I think that was a really nice thing. And you also sell like quite nice merchandise, like jumpers and T-shirts and things like that. I was looking through on this site. I thought they were like a really good thing as well.
And hats.
Yes.
And
hats. Oh well, we don't. We did a limited run of these for the festival, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we don't have any of them left, unfortunately. We did have some caps, but when we moved supplier, we changed supplier who they specialise in helping out non-profits and charities and things like that. So yeah, we still have the T-shirts and the hoodies, I believe.
Yeah,
you did when I was looking through the site yesterday. You still had quite a few hoodies. So yeah, people watching this actually have a look, because the designs in them are really nice. They're not just a big logo stuck in the middle and saying we want your money for this. They're really nice jumpers that you can sort of go out with.
Cheers.
Carl's smiling because
it's all my handiwork. Yeah, I think we are going to be releasing some more new designs soon as well.
Yeah,
just kind of keep things a little bit fresh. Yeah.
I think that's the good thing. The way we do it through the, we've learned loads of things the hard ways. We've bought stock, held stock, a lot of stock still sat in the garage.
Yeah, I'm looking at a massive pile of T-shirts.
we've had to learn everything the hard way, because again, we came into this as newbies, just with a passion to want to make a difference, and we've lost God knows how much money, we've lost God knows how much stock. God knows how much grey hair we've got or loss of hair, and we wouldn't change it for the world. But luckily, the way we are now is it enables us to, when we design merchandise, to be able to just literally design it, and then we have other companies that will hold all the stock and push it out. So we're never going to run out. We're never going to be low on stuff. So
when Ian says we've lost a lot of money, it was our money.
Yeah.
I just want to say that this was before the days that we became a non-profit and started taking donations. So
money.
People who have donated, don't worry, your money is safe.
Yeah, anyone that's donated, their money's safe. We've lost our own money. Yeah, that's our own money.
Yeah.
We should make that
Just
clear.
before we sort of start to wrap up, I want to bring it back into like sort of the music realm. And so I was speaking to my friend this week about it and just saying like how much like going to a gig is, it's like the distraction, and it's important to sort of get away for them couple of hours. And I think the word he used was getting you out of a negative headspace. And just being with friends and being outside for a few hours, and just the importance of that is, can you sort of like elaborate on how important that is for people?
Before lockdown, it had been a long time since I'd been to a gig. I've got a little 3-year-old girl, so when she came along, it kind of made things a lot hard work. And now it's only since that has totally been taken away from me that I have really regretted not going to as many gigs as I should have done. And I think it's like a little bit of escapism in a way. It's somewhere you can go and kind of just get out of your everyday life and just immerse yourself in the experience of seeing the band or a DJ, something that you really wanted to go and see. Obviously, that isn't the same for everyone. We know that some people could go to the gig with the aim of enjoying it, but ultimately, that kind of the anxiety could creep in at that point. Well, I think that's something that we, as an organisation, also want to tackle. So we want to be present at gigs like we are at a festival. So there is that safe space. Should someone need it at the back of the gig, they can then come and like sit down and chill out for a bit, and then once ready, can kind of reintroduce themselves back into the crowd.
There's so many emotions that go with gigs and festivals.
Yeah.
Like, I've never stood at the front of a festival. Well, actually, I have once, and that's when you were there, Carl, believe it or not. But I have severe anxiety around, around intoxicated men, funny enough. But I've never in my life been able to stand at the front of a gig. So, my friends are always like, let's go, let's do it, let's get to the front. And I'm like, let's not. I don't want to do it. And it's a huge thing for me. But then, when you think about gigs and you think of festivals and all of these things, they're a cocktail for disaster for some people, because pre-hand you have all the excitement, the emotions, the feelings, the exhilaration, the expectation of what's to come. But actually not everyone feels that, but they go along with it. They go along with the ride. And for some people, it's a really excruciating pain to be that enclosed with so many people around them, no way of getting out, no way of being able to retreat back. And it can really take people so fast. And as Carl said, it's kind of helping people, if they feel they want to explore more or they want to get further forward. That time that I was able to stand at the front of a festival, I'd not had a drink all day. So we were working at a festival, so I had no alcohol in my system. I had no friends around me, so I had no one kind of trying to push me along. And I was just there, and I think I'd left Carl and I went for a little walk, and I thought, I'll keep walking forward. And I'll keep walking at my own pace as I feel comfortable on my own. And before I know it, I'm at the front. And I'm like, okay, this is all right. And I retreat back. But this is the other important thing that people don't get around mental health is, all because I've done it once doesn't mean that's it now, like I'm forever fixed. It doesn't work that way. It's all about understanding moments in time and situations and approaches. So, it's different for everyone. Every experience is different for everyone. But what we know is that music brings people together. It brings people together like nothing else in the world does.
Yeah.
And that's the key to it, really.
Yeah, and I think like even if you like say some people don't want to go to the gigs because of the crowded, and in fact me and James put on a show while there was sort of the reduced restrictions, and there was somebody who came and said to us, "Oh, I've not been to a show for ages just because of the crowds, but I've come to this one because I knew how distant it was."
Yeah,
that was like a surprising benefit of what was sort of like a bad thing of only being able to do 50% capacity.
Yeah.
I thought that was good, but there's also sort of like just talking about music and sort of recommending bands and sort of saying, or DJs and things like that, and just sort of saying, "Oh, I've been listening to this," and just getting that conversation going. It doesn't. If you know someone who has like mental health and like say, he's an experience in sort of it, and it's you don't have to talk about that. You don't have to talk about the mental health. And I think just getting someone to speak is sort of the first step. And sort of asking them about what music and talking about music is a big thing to do that.
Oh man, mate, like the amount of times I've sat with people who are in real bad places, and a couple of times they've had headphones around their necks. I've gone, oh, what are you listening to? And I can remember it so clearly. They won't want to talk, and I go, what are you listening to? And they're like, oh, I remember one guy's like Ocean Colour Sea, and I was like, yeah, Mosey Shoals, love that. And he's like, yeah, me too, like that. And you know, football, music. I can't really think of many other things that will continue to be talked about until the world ends, right? Football and music, and I'm sure there's other things, but you know, when we did it as kids, we spoke about, like you said, music, new bands, new artists. Have you heard this? Yeah, I heard him ages ago, mate. You're well behind. We really haven't heard it at all. You know, this is how it all works. Everyone's trying to outdo. Same with, you know, who's going to what team. And that will carry on with our kids and with our kids' kids and our kids' kids and our kids' kids, and it will all go and it will just never stop. And it's amazing, really.
So what can, like you say, that's a good way to get people speaking, by sort of just getting talking about the music, and then you've got a bit of an in there. But for people who want to speak or are sort of scared of speaking out but think that they need to, what can they do and where can they turn?
Oh, all right, okay. There's loads of great places. There is now. I mean, I always I naturally always tell people to check out our website, always, without fail, because what we've tried to do, and we're not saying that we're the best website by any means, shape, or form, but what we've tried to always do is to be the point at which, if someone comes to it, if we can't help them, so if we don't talk their language, they're not into the way that we talk, we make it really easy on our website to divert to all other platforms. Because that's the other thing. We're all in the same thing here. It's like a Nike website having a link to Adidas. They wouldn't dream of it. But in our world, mental health world, that's what we do. So if someone doesn't get what we're saying, then we'll happily divert them to other people. I'm not sure it goes the other way around, but we do that. So that's why I always say to people, come to ours, because you'll be able to get any other place you need to from ours. There's great groups, and maybe people shouldn't be too afraid of social media. Maybe they should dip their toes in the water to find like-minded groups, whether that be on Facebook or whatever other platform that there is, whether it's even on Instagram, because there's lots on Instagram. But find something that they can relate to. And that's really key as well, because when people don't understand something, they tend to try and read a bit, and so many times people will spend too long trying to understand information that isn't relatable to them. And it's like got to be that rule of 2 seconds, I'd say. If you see it and it doesn't resonate, just put it down, because there'll be something else that will. So dabble around, see what site makes you feel comfortable, see who's talking your language, see who, when you read it, says something and you think, yeah, that makes sense. Because we all say the same stuff, like we said earlier. We can't change the stuff, it's just how it's said. So yeah, just do that. Come to our site, have a look around. If not, jump on some other ones. Would be my I
think that's a really important point, that if you think, oh, I've tried reading before and it's not done it for me, maybe look at a different angle and sort of go for something that's more appropriate for you. It's
absolutely
not so much that just reading doesn't work for you. What you've read isn't.
I do it all the time still. I live and breathe this. I mean, like I said, I train it, but the amount I've got 2 here, right? I've got 2 clippings. I've got this one here, and I've got another one here. Okay, my mum gave me this about a year ago. Sorry, Mum, I've not even looked at it, because it doesn't. Something about that doesn't appeal to me, and it's sat under my computer. I keep thinking, yeah, I'll read that, but it doesn't appeal to me. But what I also know is there's nothing in there that I won't be able to get maybe from this one or something else. There isn't. And this is the thing that we do. We spend so much time trying to force ourselves to fit what we think we should read because it's going to help, that when it doesn't, we feel even worse. Just don't look at it. Don't, mental health's like one of the biggest growing industries, one of the biggest growing, I don't know what you'd call it because it's life, but it's growing, right? There's so much literature out there. Just find the one that you can read and enjoy. And that's the first step, really.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I think a key point for people is to go to your website and go on, like you say, Instagram's where you're most sort of active, and just go there, and then people can sort of donate from there, can see what you're doing. If you can't donate, you can't donate. If you can, please do. I think it's a great thing that you're both doing, and well, all three of you are doing. And
thank you.
It's a really positive thing.
Cheers, thank you.
So what is your website link again for people to sort of go to?
So we are just wearehummingbird.com. On there you'll find all the information. We also have the Hummingbird sessions for musicians. So if they want to just record a video of the song on the phone, they can send that to us, and we will put that up on our YouTube channel, which also goes onto the website and across social media. We also have the playlists that we put out every Friday of 12 songs, which is a nod to the men that take their lives every day. It is every day, isn't it?
Every day, every
not
day.
Making that one up. Yeah. That's open to absolutely anybody. Anyone can submit a playlist. Again, all the information is on the website. And yeah, just get in touch with us. We're very, very friendly people, and we'll always make time to talk to people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's great, and thank you for both coming on. I know it's quite early on a Saturday when we're recording this.
Thanks for having us. It's been great.
Yeah, it'd be lovely. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Cheers, guys.
Hopefully, like you say, when festivals are back, we can come see you there and have a chat there, and so we can look at what we can do in the future to help people.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be welcoming everyone to come and say hello.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.